Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Berto Will is your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. As you can see, we had that loop going. Why? Because, man, I wasn't on time. I was trying to rip one last video. And you know how that goes. You have to reboot, you have to do this, and then it comes out and it's like, okay, I think I got it. But we've got a full show for you today. We just have a few minutes, actually not a whole lot of videos today, but we have a whole lot of talking to do. And by the way, the phones are open. Let me go ahead and put the phone number on the screen. The phone number is, what is that phone number, guys? Do you know what that phone number is? We better get it right. 346-248-7799. Again, 346-248-7799, and the code to get in, 254-600-9091. And folks, welcome aboard Michael Rudnin, AVQ, watching from YouTube. And we have on Facebook Michael Rudnin and Hope Bleeker. Hope, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing fine. Just a little bit what is it? You know, when you feel like you're just a little bit rushed because you just made it on time. You have to get it on air at 3 o'clock and you just barely make it. And it's like, thank you, processor, for coming in just on time. About 30 seconds before 3 o'clock hits, the processing says done. And then it is time for you to kind of put it into the buggy transmission software. And when you're done putting it into the buggy transmission software, you're ready to go, because that is how we do it with independent media. We don't have 20 people ready to go to fix every problem that you have. Hola, señor Manuel Herrera. ¿Cómo estás? How you doing, Manuel? Nice to see you here. You are, let's see, you are on Facebook as well. Folks, come on in. Let's see if there's anything else I need to go and talk about before I actually get into the show. Please, I do have one thing to tell everybody. Please go ahead and start sharing on your wall, on your page, on your Twitter, on your Tumblr, on your what is it called? Instagram, on your, what is it? The other thing that kids like to use now. TikTok. You know what? I finally opened my TikTok account. And I am going to start doing some stuff on TikTok. In fact, I've got over 10,000 users on Instagram. So what it allows me to do with over 10,000 users on Instagram now is I can actually bring them back to the show and bring them back to the different parts, of my websites, etc. Kind of cool. So I really need some help doing that, but, I do it when I can to kind of get folks over, etc., etc., etc. But we are going to have a great show for you today. The title of the show today is, and as I seek, and as I search, and as I look for the title, I am able to tell you that the title is... No, that's not the title. Where are you? Where is my show? Where is my show? Where is my show? I'm coming with my... Look like I got to refresh the screen. Anyhow, the title of the show is Bolsonaro, Amazon, Tax, Corporate Dem, Racism, COVID-19, Debt Traps, and more. And look, we got a lot of subjects to talk about. And guess what? With all those subjects, those things sound disjointed. They're not. They're not disjointed subjects. These are things that we need to take in together. And what I'm going to do is talk about each of them. And then later on, we kind of tie them all in. But anyhow, welcome aboard, everybody. Let's go ahead and let's get busy. The first thing I want to show is a video that I cut last night. This stuff came up in my feed. And I went to the author, the person who put the video up on Twitter. And I said, hey, guy, you had it in the Twitter format. Do you give me authorization to go ahead and pull the video down, reformat it, and enhance the audio so that people can hear what it said? And he said, sure, lo que es mío es tuyo, meaning what's mine is yours. And that's how we kind of are in the progressive independent media. If I have a video, I tell folks, use it, share it, because if we have it out here, we want people seeing it. But I want you to see this, because there was some irony to this. Check this out.
Name? What's yours? You're not having a conversation with you there. You're interrogating.
Okay, my name.
That's not what I asked you. I asked you your name.
My name is Margie.
Margie, nice to meet you. Why
on, Tad. Get out of here.
Let him walk.
How are you following me and telling me to get out of here?
Then we're gonna talk.
We're not gonna talk. You're gonna go do your thing, and I'm gonna do my thing.
No.
That's the way it works. Have a nice day.
You don't do that.
Do you guys see this?
I do. I sure do see it.
Oh, you're having a problem with this?
Yeah, just let this guy walk down the street. He's not bothering you.
Come here.
I don't want to come here.
This is the America we're talking about, Margie. Have a nice day.
That's recorded and all of a sudden she's upset.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're doing something you don't want to be recorded.
That kind of brings back some memories with me. I won't go into it right now because I don't think it is apropos to be talking about that right now. But it's interesting because I'm just that is just sort of Dimitri OG. Hola familia, ¿cómo estás? The reason I wanted to bring that up is, America is changing, and I think this time it's for real. This guy took a picture of a house or something like that. I don't know if he's a real estate guy or whatever, but people do that all the time. It was the same thing. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the murder, the vigilante murder in Georgia, when they said they thought this guy was suspect because he was going into this empty house, this house that was being built, and because of that they thought he may have been a thief. Of course, all the video shows that a lot of people constantly go into that house, look around, and leave. When my house was being built, the amount of people that were in my house, I mean, there are people in the neighborhood. When I just got here, I had an internet company, and I had a whole bunch of wires coming in, both RJ45 and RJ11s coming in, because we're going to have racks of computers to put out. It was a BBS days, the olden days, and people were in here all the time. And people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I was in here. What were all those wires for? What was all of that for?" Which means all these people were in my house while it was being built. Which, my wife and myself and others have gone to other people's home and been inside of other houses as they've been built. And we never thought about, neighbors coming in and blowing our heads off or wanting to make a citizen arrest because we're doing that. But this is the same scenario, right? This guy takes a picture of a house, but he's in public property in a street, and he's walking, he's not bothering anybody. And she takes it on her own notion to walk through with this guy. Only person it has ever happened to. And the good thing about what's happening here is these kids that are walking actually, hello, Rose, welcome aboard, actually sees this occurring, right? And they go ahead and they follow with a camera. And it's almost like having that guardian angel. And that's where we're getting in this country. And that's how the problem getting solved, right? In other words, we know there's systemic racism in the country, right? A lot of times, for a long time, many people of color, Latinos, Asian, Black, all these folks have been saying, this is what happens. We are constantly looked at. We are constantly harassed. But everybody, because a large percentage of Americans are good people and they don't do it, they assume that nobody else does, or it's the oddball that does it. Well, as we make our own movies according to what's occurring in this country, as we get it on tape, as cell phones come, and the 1 and 2 doesn't do it. But when it's in your skin, I just went on a channel from just the things that happened yesterday. Just the videos that are out yesterday. I'm not talking about they just put them up yesterday. I mean the things that have occurred yesterday. It is, it's a constant thing. When we talk about living in a constant sense of being watched, living in a constant sense of being abused or harassed or whatever, and people trying to stereotype, the constancy of that, right? It bears on you. But now when you have allies, and my white brothers and sisters, that's why when you guys become allies, that's a great thing. And that this guy who told me to go ahead and use the video, that's what he said. He said, come on, man, we're allies. You go ahead and do with that video what you need to do with that video. And, they are like part of the brigade because they are doing the taping. A lot of times they can do the taping in an inconspicuous manner because nobody is watching them or second guessing them. So they can actually get audio and video where other folks would be on the hesitancy if you're doing it. So it's great having allies. It is great having these things exposed as they should, as they need to be. And all I can say about America is becoming slowly the America that we write about, the America that we like to believe we are, but the America that we never was. The America that was never great that Donald Trump talks about. The America that was never great for women. The America that was, hello Bruce, welcome aboard. The America that was never great for black people. The America that was never great for Asians. The America that was never great for the indigenous. The America that was never great for all these people. But slowly we are making it great for everybody. And that the one genius I'm not a fanatic of the founding fathers at all. In fact, I hold them in very minor regards. The one thing I hold them in good regards for, is having put in what I call the elastic clause in the capitalistic constitutional document. And what that has done is that has allowed us to turn that document, use that document as a framework to make better. I have some friends who would cut my head off if I said that, because what they want is a new document. That's probably unlikely. But the idea that it has a clause, we can actually make amendments that completely invalidate what was there previous. It's amazing, you know? And that, I think, is always the genius in the Constitution. And that is a genius that we intend to use in the Constitution. So anyhow, that is important. Now, I want to jump to something else about blame. As we all know, the coronavirus is out of control right now. Completely out of control. Don't listen to anything that you hear. The coronavirus is out of control and we are in trouble as a nation. The question is, what are we going to do about it, right? By the way, folks, if you're just joining us, please be sure to share our programs. It is imperative that you share it on your wall. It is imperative that you share it on your pages. And one of the reasons what that does is it gives us additional necessary exposure for the topics that we talk about. But so the things that you're hearing about the virus, it's no big deal now because it's young people getting it now, it seems like the death rate has gone down, etc., 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 etc. What I want to tell you guys, most of all, folks, is do not sit back there and believe that about the death rates. First of all, we're not in different waves. We are actually it's getting tougher. And not only is it getting tougher, but it's getting more dangerous in what's going to happen going forward. But Brian Williams today and this is why I think it's so important that we keep these things going. Brian Williams had something very important to say today. What I want to do is it's a very short piece. I want to play this and let you, just for you to understand what's going on with young folk. So let's check this out.
I was just going to add, number one, the virus doesn't really respect human schedules. It's predatory. It strikes where and when it can. And number two, the president keeps saying young people do extraordinarily well. And in many cases, he's right. But I was corrected in real time last night. We had a doctor on from Florida. I talked about how many young people there are who are asymptomatic carriers. She corrected me and she said, we're getting a lot of young people to take chest x-rays, and those chest x-rays are showing permanent lung damage in people who didn't know they had it. So I lay that out there. No one truly is immune from this illness.
That is a very, very important statement, and I'd like you to make sure to tell that to all of your kids and to all of the young people out there, because there are a lot of people that are carrying it. They are symptomatic. They don't feel anything, but they are sitting back there truly believing. They truly believe that because they're not ill right now, because they're not getting it, because that somehow they are immune to the damage that it has done. Well, I have relatives, and I have a young relative who's got it. And that young relative who's got it, it's out, the video is out of sync, the entire video, or just the things that I play? Go ahead and let me know, Jackie, because we've been having some issues with this particular version of software that comes. So are we talking about what I'm saying right now that's out of sync or not? How do you have a timestamp on it? I'll be curious because I have to be able to talk to people, report this as a bug in their software. This is a very good piece of software that we use for broadcasts, and I don't know why that would be the case, but please let me know. Anyhow, folks, so tell your relatives, your families, and everybody else that it is important. It is very important that not because they may go get a test and it comes out that they're sick and they feel nothing, that they're okay. And the reason they're not okay is that the damage to the organs are still occurring. The damage to your organs are still occurring. This is not a good thing, and it's something that we have got to watch for some time to come. I'm glad that you guys reported the out of sync issues, guys. It's enough to be annoying. Yep, a few seconds is enough to be annoying. I can't stand it. It's like watching a badly dubbed Japanese. I know. I'm sorry I don't have control over that, my brothers and my sisters. Is it off of sync on YouTube also? I wonder. Okay, Jack, you're playing on YouTube, and Norman is seeing it on the other one. Jackie Payton, yeah, very unprofessional. I think that may be true. I am using all professional tools, Jackie. So, you know, what can I say about it? Just to let you know that for all the people that are sending things, doing things remotely right now, there are issues. If you take a look at even MSNBC, they're having some internet issues as well. So, sorry about that. I'll try to fix that however I can after I report it, after I find out things. But anyhow, back to the show. So, remembering that it's not good enough to say that you don't have the symptoms. Whether or not you can still pass it along, and just as well, do remember that you're likely getting lung damage. Folks, we're taking calls today, 346-248-7799. Again, that is 346-248-7799. I have another video that I want to show you. I said we have to be assigning blame. Many people say, oh, this is not the time for blame. If we don't assign blame, I don't think we can move forward. We have to assign blame to why things are the way they are, because in doing so, we can ensure that when November comes around, the people who have been in the position of going against all the things that would make this better, they would do. We won't put them into office. So let's go ahead and play that last video, and then we'll move on from there.
I was just going to add, number one, the virus doesn't really respect human schedules. It's predatory. It strikes where and when it can. And number two, the president keeps saying young people do extraordinarily well. And in many cases, he's right. But I was corrected in real time last night. We had a doctor on from Florida. I talked about how many young people there are who are asymptomatic carriers. She corrected me and she said, we're getting a lot of young people to take chest x-rays, and those chest x-rays are showing permanent lung damage in people who didn't know they had it. So I laid that out there.
That's the wrong video. The one that I was supposed to play is the one called Blame. I think I had that queued up. Let's see.
This is NBC News correspondent Garrett Haake. He's outside of UMC El Paso, which has seen a 200% increase in hospitalizations over the past 10 days. Garrett, I know we talk a lot about PPE, we talk a lot about hospital beds, but are there enough medical staffers, hospital workers, doctors, nurses to treat the influx of patients?
Yeah, Katie, that's been the real concern among folks that I've talked to here on the ground in El Paso. They think they have enough PPE. They think they have enough bed space. They have the benefit of having watched East Coast cities go through surges, so they know what that will look like here. But you can't conjure experienced doctors, nurses, and respiratory therapists out of thin air if you need them. And The same isolation, relatively speaking, that has helped protect El Paso up until this point. This hospital is the only level 1 trauma center within a 300-mile radius. That same isolation could cause problems for El Paso should that surge come, and they need those extra people. And all around the state, people are looking at the decisions that were made to get us to this point. And I have to tell you, Democrats are laying this squarely on the shoulders of the state's Republican governor, Greg.
This was a real moment to do it, to put partisan politics aside, to put petty disputes aside, and do the best by his citizens, by Texans. Well, he failed to do that. He also failed to create a robust testing and tracing plan, failed to follow CDC guidelines before opening. We were at 1% of testing when Governor Abbott chose to open up the state. What we are seeing today in the state in terms of the human devastation should not shock anyone. It should be no surprise.
That's Democratic Congresswoman Veronica Escobar of El Paso here. Lately, the governor has added this statewide mask order across the state. They've closed bars again. The question is now, can anything stop this spike that we're seeing in the larger cities in eastern Texas? And that appears to be making its way west across the state, Katie.
I'm Egberto. Bruce, I love your solution. Maybe I'll go downstairs and get my mask and keep it upstairs. Well, one of my masks, that is, and keep upstairs for the sink problem. But right now, as it turns out, I can just kind of put my mouth in front. You won't necessarily see what is actually going on. Okay. Anyhow, folks, so I think it is so imperative, right, that we start assigning blame, because what happens is this. The Republican Party is very, very good at telling you things like this. It is not the time to discuss these issues right now. But then, when it's on the other foot, they'll tell you, we have to talk about this right now so that it doesn't happen again. We have to be very careful about that. We have to let America know where the blame is going and where the blame came from. And notice I talked about tying all these issues together. COVID-19, debt relief, and all these other issues. Well, why did I bring up debt? Right now, as it turns out, going back to what we're talking about, the title of the show, of course, was Bolsonaro, Amazon tax, corporate dem, racism, COVID-19 debt traps, right? As it turns out, there's an interesting thing that has occurred, and I need to bring up my other piece here. And that is, I don't know if you guys remember what the CFPB is. The CFPB is that organization that controls, how the behavior of credit card debt and all of that. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I think is what it's called. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Anyhow, as it turns out right now, what do you think they're attempting to do? We are in a pandemic. I think everybody can agree to that. We are in a pandemic. People are going to be starved for money, and a lot of people are going to start to use up their credit. And there are some people that don't have the best credit, but there are always vultures out there that know that you have a car, know that you may have a boat or something like that. And what they will do is they'll give you a loan at whatever interest rates that will be allowed, that's legally possible. Well, the CFPB, when it was designed and developed, was to curb these predatory type lending materials. Well, guess what happened under Brother Trump? Dr. Trump, in his manner of always wanted to get over somebody, here we go. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Director, Kathy Kreninger, is facing calls to resign after her agency finalized a rule Tuesday that critics say will further expose vulnerability people to debt traps set by payday and car title lenders. Kreninger, who was nominated by President Donald Trump and confirmed by the Senate in 2018, just stamped an official seal of approval on one of the worst practices of payday lenders. And now there's nothing stopping the industry from ruining families with 400% interest rates in the middle of a recession. And this is not a recession, folks. This is a depression. Remember what I talked about all of the times. The reason people knew it was a depression, right, is that there are a lot of people on the streets in soup lines and all of that, and the farmers were coming into town for sustenance, etc. That is happening right now in America. If you go to San Antonio, if you go to Houston downtown, near downtown, if you go to all these other places, there are given away in some places 5,000-6,000 packets of food to people several times a week. We are already in a depression. The difference is we know how to do this better. We know that if we don't tell people about it, if the TV cameras are not out there all the time as they are when there's a murder in the ghetto or murder in the barrios, if they're not there, you notice I didn't say murder in Appalachia because that's not the picture our media wants to put out. We want to show the murders and dysfunction in the ghettos and the barrios, and we don't want to show a lot of people in lines getting food. We don't want, I just ask you one thing. If 40 million people were out of jobs, and if over the last several years we've been talking about Americans don't have savings, and if beyond that we've also talked about most Americans, if they're faced with 80% of Americans, if they're faced with a $400 bill, it presents a clear and present danger to their personal economies. We've said those things, right? Before this pandemic, we've said all those things. So you have brothers and sisters, 40 million of them now, that are underemployed, unemployed, or just sitting at home not getting anything. And the $1,200 stimulus that went to every single American that out there is no longer there. And there's nothing that the government is doing to pump money into these people's pockets like a basic income or something like that. What do you think is happening throughout our land? I want you to think about that. What do you think is happening throughout America? And the next question you have to ask is, why isn't it being seen on TV? I mean, it's not a difficult, you know the math. You know the math. That's why we have independent media now. But you know the math. There are a lot of people hurting. Those of us that can make it by or whatever, we can see it. But that mother who is living in a multi-story apartment building with no way to get to work because there's no work, and no money coming in with 4 kids, what are they to do for something that the government mismanaged in the first place? And then in another mismanagement, we have the government allowing it. They may have a car and they may be in dire straits and they may have to take that car in to get money from that car for sustenance to survive, with the expectation that something is going to happen in the near term, that they can pay that interest rate and get the title for that car back so that they have a transportation to go to work when the place opens up for them to go to work again. No, 400% loan, that's in effect saying we're donating our car for fractions or pennies on the dollar, because we won't be able to take it back out because of the interest that will cost. These are things that are affecting millions of Americans, and nobody on TV is talking about it in a continuous manner to say, no, America, we are not in a recession. We are in a depression. Unfortunately, we have to say now, the depression will not be televised. The depression will not be televised. I said one thing, and that is, we are going to have to find a way to help everybody, all these folks, somehow, some way. And there are a lot of, the good thing about the Spirit is that there are a lot of good people out there doing just that. But anyhow, for the sake of all consumers, Funk added, the director needs to step aside. The final rule, which has been in the works for more than a year, rolls back Obama-era regulations requiring payday and card title lenders to verify that borrowers have the ability to repay before approving high-interest short-term loans. Last June, Kreninger delayed implementation of the safeguards which were previously set to take effect on August 19, 2019. According to the Payday Loan Debt Trap Tracker, Kreninger's decision to delay the regulations cost consumers nearly $6 billion in fees. So that's a tax. It's a tax. The American bankers reported Tuesday that Kreninger rollback is projected to save the payday lending industry more than $7 billion a year. So there we go. We just gave another tax break to the payday industry in the form that you pay. You pay. I want you guys to see this, people. I want you guys to have some empathy, people. I want you guys not to just look at our own reality for those of us that are doing better, for those of us that are doing marginally, for those of us that are just doing. I want us to look at those that are simply not waking up in the morning and probably not ever sleeping because their head is so hot, wanting to know how are they going to make it tomorrow. Think about that. We know how many people are out of work. We know that. We know that. The question is, how do we solve that? So that was one of the first topics that we wanted to discuss, and that is about the debt trap. The debt trap. It is something that we have to take into account when we're going to vote and make sure that we can do something about that. The other thing is when we have sort of a good news, right? And that is that Amazon, it's not, they call it the Amazon tax in Seattle, but what it really is that we finally are doing something about, and Seattle, Seattle has a socialist in their city council, and she has a lot of respect in that she does a lot for the people of Seattle. Everybody in Seattle in the way she works. Her name is Shama Sawant. And she's been getting laws passed she's just been doing things right. She's a real populist, a real people person. Well, anyway, what happened? The tax Amazon movement claimed a historic victory for working people on Monday when Seattle's city council passed a new tax on big business to fund local economic relief. The vote on the Jumpstart Seattle plan proposed last month by council member Teresa Mosqueda was a veto-proof 7-2. The plan targets corporations with payrolls of $7 million or more and employees with salaries above $150,000, with the measure expected to generate at least $200 million a year. The tax rate corporations would pay ranges from 0.7% to 2.4%. The highest rate, which would affect Seattle-based Amazon, would hit businesses with payrolls at least $1 billion with salaries of $500,000 per year. Some people say, oh, but that's going to cause businesses to leave. So let them leave. Eventually, if every municipality, if every city, if everybody started to put the onus on corporations who use all the services of these cities, who use the intellect of these cities, who use all that these cities have had to provide them and not wanting to give back, if all of us started to say, if the federal government doesn't want to do it, each municipality would do it. Where are they going to move? To Timbuktu, Idaho? Where are they going to move to? It's time to take back what is ours. And what they're doing was such a great thing. Why? Because when you have that during the duration of this pandemic, listen good, during the duration of this pandemic, Bezos has doubled his wealth. Bezos and his ex-wife has doubled their wealth from over $100 billion to over $200 billion. And you have to ask yourself, check this out. This tax that they're putting onto several corporations throughout Seattle will raise $200 million. Less than 1%. Let's see, 5 times. Yeah, I think it's less than 1% of the increase in value of the wealth of the pesos. Think about that. Think about that. I mean, I sit back and think about these things often, right? And I have to sit back and say, what are these people thinking? What are these people thinking? And those who come to the defense of providing a tax on these guys, who again, they're not doing you a favor by paying the tax. I mean, you're not suckering them into something or anything like that, because it is important for us to really start valuing our own worth, right? We provide a service, and to put it bluntly, we provide a service at a very deep discount. And all we're saying is, let's stop providing that service at a deep discount. And if the company won't voluntarily stop giving paying little for that service, we can get it on the other end. In other words, if they don't want to pay the employees and they have the employees in the food line, people are working and still in the welfare line, people are working and still in all these different lines asking for help. Okay. Since you don't want to give it directly to the employees, we'll take it from you on the back end, and then we'll pay for help the employee live, given that you refuse to do your part, you refuse to do your societal duty. That's how it should work. You know, the paradigm that says because you have the wherewithal to have capital, that somehow you earned it all and that you can do as you please, I think that is actually called, what is it called again? I think that is, in the days that used to be called like slavery, just in this case without the whip. But at least in slavery, damn, they had to clothe you, they had to keep you healthy because you were property. Now that you're not even property, you're nothing. Think about that. People look at me when I say this and they kind of get, what are you saying? You know, after all, that person is a president of a company, or that person is a manager at the company. He's not a slave at all. He's not. And then you start looking to see, well, let's see what that person is going to have at the end of their life and see what they really, really, really are. And then we can learn exactly how the system works. Anyhow, next subject, and then we're going to tie this all together. Neil, listen, there is a Massachusetts congressman that's in trouble. The congressman's name is what is his name? Neil, I can't remember his last name. Alexander. I mean, para ver, ayúdame por favor, mi gente, ayúdame. Anyhow. There's this congressman from Massachusetts. Neil is his name. Okay. There's a bipartisan bill that came out that prevented hospitals and these guys from. Let me just read what it says here. A new 300. First, I want to say what it is that he did wrong. I want to tell you what he did wrong because. According to the study published in the February Journal of American Medical Association, 1 in 5 Americans with health insurance reported that they had received a surprise medical bill after surgery or another procedure. The bills often demand payment to anesthesiologists or surgical assistants, and the average bill was for more than $2,000. The ad set to air in Western Massachusetts for the rest of July ahead of Neil's September 1 primary, in which he faces 30-year-old Haloki, Massachusetts Mayor Alex Morse. Morse has been endorsed by progressive groups. Morse's campaign is not connected. What it does is it says there was a bipartisan bill out there that says hospitals and these guys cannot do that anymore. They can no longer give you these surprise bills, the undercover way in which they normally do it. And well, this one Democrat blocked a bipartisan bill. Well, a group comes out and they put out a huge commercial. And this commercial, I think they were spending, I don't know how many $1 million on the commercial, $300,000 for the first drop of the commercial. And what it's going to do, it's going to really put the progressive that's running Morse, it's going to give him a lead up. And you know what? This Neil representative from Massachusetts, is a stalwart. He's been there for a long time. He thinks he owns a seat. Like that guy out of New York thought he owned the seat. Well, there's a good chance now that he will lose. So we'll see what happens. But I think these are important things, because what we have to realize going forward is it's not just Republicans that do bad things. It's corporate money that do bad things. And when Democrats win, the corporate dollars follow them, and many of those corporate dollars. In fact, too many of them follow it. That's the reason we don't have Medicare for all, because they paid off Democrats not to have, first of all, the public option. The only reason they're looking into the public option now is that most of Americans want the Medicare for all bill to be passed. And given that that would pretty much destroy private insurance as we know it, private health insurance as we know it, they figure, we better try to find a way to get the public option, and get in the public option, we can make some sort of a deal to keep screwing the American people. But American people, what we have to do, and please, let's all do it. Share, by the way, if you're just joining us, please remember to share these programs. We work together and we have options to do. So our first thing right now is to go ahead and get Donald Trump out of office. Elect as progressive as people as you can. Look at what's happening in Massachusetts. They're getting rid of that stalwart. Hopefully he'll go because of what he did. I think it's important that Democrats as well see that there's a price to pay when they support non-progressive values in Congress. They must face the values. And at the same time, we must protect the replacement from being a Republican that's right of them. Now, what about if a Republican that's left of them? Oh, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to piss off a lot of people. But if there was a Republican to the left of any Democrat running, meaning he is going to vote for progressive policies, you bet your life I'll vote for that Republican. Because ultimately speaking, it's not about party. Ultimately speaking, it's about who is doing the right thing for you. Who is doing the right thing for the American people in general? Who is doing the right thing to make sure the lives of people are better? Political parties are just organizations that are easily controlled by the corporate entity. So that's what it's all about. Who is doing that? So before I tie all of this together, I think I have one more. Yeah, the one more is just Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, el presidente de Brazil, the president of Brazil, he now has the coronavirus. So now we have the the four crazies that are running the countries that have handled coronavirus the worst, meaning America, Brazil, the UK, and Russia. Guess what? They're doing the worst. Now, 2 of the 4 inept politicians have now gotten the virus. Boris Johnson almost died in the UK. He survived, and his country is doing very well now in controlling the virus. They've joined the rest of Europe, and they have all these rates down. So they're doing better than they did before. Russia, who knows what's happening in Russia? They don't report. It's so hard to get a report in there, but we know they're doing pretty darn bad, and even what they're reporting is pretty darn bad. Another right-wing kook. Brazil, just like Donald Trump, country is a mess. It's festering with the coronavirus. And then there's America. And between America and Brazil, there's some issues with India. And the reason, India is locking people up for pandemics and that sort of stuff. Okay? Let's see. Egberto, looks like I'm going to have 3 follow-up shares later tonight for your show today. We'll make sure. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. So it's important, brothers and sisters. So Bolsonaro has coronavirus. And now we'll see if he survives. Look, I don't want anybody to die from it. Okay? But let's remember that Bolsonaro, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, and Putin has caused the deaths of thousands of world citizens. Thousands of world citizens were murdered by the policies of these guys. Let's not forget that. So now that 2 out of the 4 has the disease, I think Boris Johnson learned, and he's allowed his country to do the responsible thing. Donald Trump, everybody around him is getting the virus. His Secret Service is getting the virus. His son's girlfriend has gotten the virus. Many people around him has gotten the virus, in as much as he tries to isolate from them. The question is, think about this. I hear you, James, Ian James, but I can't go there. But the question is, what are we going to do? Well, November, we know what we're going to do. We're going to get rid of him in November. I am almost sure that we will get rid of him in November. But it has to be deeper. We have to also use this as a springboard to Medicare for All. So how do I tie all the topics together that we discussed today? And then I'm going to go to the boards. Bolsonaro, Amazon tax, corporate dem, racism, COVID-19, debt traps. Okay, so we have guys like Bolsonaro who are the bastions of pushing policies that hurt people. They are the bastions, or the ones responsible for creating the coronavirus. But what has that done? In as much as we have several 100,000 people that have so far died from the coronavirus, we have to make sure that they did not die in vain. It has opened up the minds of many, so that a city like Seattle, as left as it is, it has never been able to get that Amazon tax passed. Now they can pass that tax because the people are hurt and they know that they're in trouble. And now they can see that there is they can see that you have the Amazon leaders making above and beyond, profiting from the ills of the people. As people are shopping more online, their wealth is being transferred to Amazon. So of course, their wherewithal now to put a tax on Amazon, that even after Corona is gone, people will see the value in having that. The corporate Democrat that was able to skip by for years, for decades, because nobody really had to have Medicare for All, race is now in contention, because the coronavirus together has said to the people, you know what? We really need to start seriously thinking about those who are going to step out for us. And that's why we have all those people that are losing, that thought their jobs were secure. And the debt traps. The debt trap must be that catalyst going forward for us to really give the masters of capital the lesson that they need. The fact that within a pandemic, they are willing to provide 400% interest rates for what will ultimately be increased business for them, as people have to borrow more to survive to the next day. They will have to borrow more, which means a windfall for the crooks. A windfall for the crooks, for which Donald Trump has assisted in their windfall. Okay, let's see. Let me tell everybody hello. Michael Rudnin, AVQ, Hope Beaker, Manuel Herrera, Dimitri OG, Rose Williams, Norman Reynolds, Bruce Pollard, Lawrence Sims, Jackie Payton, who said, my audio was out of sync, and because it's out of sync, I'm very unprofessional. I try my best to be as professional as I can. I'm a one-person operation, but Jackie Payton, you can help me be more professional by getting other equipment. You can join our equipment fund, which I'll put in the list later on, or you can actually just become a Facebook subscriber to Politics Done Right. I'd love it. And you know what? I decided to write a quick book before the other one that I finish, because it has a particular message for this time. You can also join for that book. You get that book free when it comes out. AVQ is here. I think I spoke to Rose Williams. Para ver. So Jackie Payton, I hope to hear from you, my dear, beautiful lady. Norman Reynolds, I think I called you out before too. Para ver. Who else is here? I know there are. Jay Watt. Welcome, Jay. See who else is here. I want to call out everybody. Ian James Chapman, welcome. AVQ, I think I called you out. Norman says, it must be deeper, as Trump could say at the convention. I will not seek the nomination of my party for re-election, and all the Republicans that created child separation at the border, demolition of independent law, will build their lifeboats to survive their cover for the seditious behavior of this administration. I love that, Norman. Hey, Norman, you've been putting some good quotes on later. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Para ver, I need to get to my people. Herrera, the top 3 countries with coronavirus infection: USA, Brazil, Russia. Rudnin also remembered that India jumped up to number 3. Thank you very much, Michael. Hey, folks, remember, Rudnin is our encyclopedia here, so always look to Rudnin to find things rather quickly. Let's see, I'm taking a photo of a house. He must be... I know, right? I hear you, Rudnin. Bruce is in the house. Let's see. U.S. had 50,000 new cases of coronavirus, a new record. It's actually more, Michael. I think that's an older number. I think the number got up to 56,000. I saw somewhere last night. Let's see what else is here. Para ver. By the way, folks, for those of you that you just couldn't handle the unsynced video, I'll clean that up, and I put the final version on YouTube, and that one is usually synced and cleaned up as best as it's cleaned up very well. Bruce wants me to wear a mask to fix my syncing problem. I like that. Rundin, you put a long one in there. That is what Republicans do. They screw people so that the price gougers can profiteer off the vulnerable. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau Director. Yes, you're absolutely right, sir. I'm not going to read the whole thing, though, because you know what you said. Whoops, you put it twice. Michael Rodnin says the ordinance establishes a tiered system of taxation on companies. Yes, it does. Putting tax burden back on corporations. Yes, it should, and that's where it should be. Corporation is a false entity, right? We actually call it a artificial entity in our activist parlance. Okay, let's see. Jay Watt says, we the people need a progressive flat tax all the way. Trillions include corporations and churches. Start at 25,000. I could do that, but I think when we talk about flat tax, we have to mitigate the regressiveness of it. So what we may want to do is institute within a flat tax some sort of give backs based on economic conditions. That's above my pay grade, but I think you're on to the flat tax modified would make sense. Let's see. If not a depression, given our memory, compare our unemployment in 1980s to our current state, then look at Germany's unemployment. They were so disadvantaged, but they had a safety net. Yes, no other country is suffering the financial demise that we are currently going through. James said, I do want Bolsonaro to die because of what you said, because he's affected the death of many people. I am a bit more generous than that. Let's see. Still, Norman says, I think I read that from Norman already. Tiala, hey, I still got the information, synced or not synced. Thank you, Tiala. You made me feel pretty damn good. Anyway, folks, please do remember that we are a program that need your support. We're about to end this thing here, and I just ask you to stick around to hear my plug, to ask you to support the show. Those of you who haven't yet supported the show, and those of you who have the wherewithal to do so. So please remember, I need subscribers. I'll just be frank. Right now I have, I think, maybe 3 subscribers on, I have 100 and something elsewhere, but I have 3 subscribers on Facebook. I need more Facebook subscribers so I can start building that group. And, so here is that Facebook link to become the Facebook subscriber. So if you have the wherewithal, please become a Facebook subscriber. It's worth doing. You're helping move the progressive message on. My Patreon, of course, is my big platform. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. I used some catered addresses, but I went ahead and changed that. And of course, if you want to go via PayPal, here is my PayPal thing. PayPal.me/politicsdoneright. But you can shop at our store. Our store has our book and much more. That is store.politicsdoneright.com, where you can get these. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, and Lose Weight and Be Fit now. I've gone through weight problems. I've solved my weight problem using these techniques, and it's the same technique that will work for you, and you can get that at store.politicsdoneright.com. And of course, you can also get our cup. We have t-shirts. You've seen me wear the t-shirts a few times, etc. So I ask you so kindly, subscribe. That is how we build a better America. Look, I know you can be anywhere. So I thank you so kindly for being here. I don't think folks know how appreciative somebody that does this is to those who listen, who spend the time here. It is rewarding to know that we can do much together. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I get out of here. I am what? Out! I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.